Okay, so as I started saying earlier, we're going to start now a special ma'amar, a Chassidic discourse. They started putting together these books, and over here, the second to last mimer of this book is about Hanukkah. It's never too early. The Mishnah tells us that 30 days before the Chag, we try to learn about the subject of the Chag. We're not far away from 30 days, especially considering the fact that we are only Tuesday night, so we're learning this mimer, and so it's definitely not too early, and hopefully we'll try to get as much as possible in before Hanukkah, and then we're going to use the same sefer, hopefully, to learn about. There's a beautiful mimer over here for Purim, Al Kain Karu, and so there's plenty to learn. If you want to have your own sefer, I'll be happy. Today I ordered 5, and some of you purchased the new sefer. If you want, I can purchase one for you, and I'll make sure you get it, Bezrat Hashem, the next possible time. But it's very beautiful, a little bit of Hebrew, and mainly all in English. Okay, so the theme of this mimer is going to be as follows. We find something interesting about Chanukah. Chanukah has a number of points which are super rational, supernatural. For example, Chanukah is 8 days. Let's start with the candles. There are 8 candles. On the menorah, the candelabra on the Beit HaMikdash, there were 7 branches. You had 3 branches to each side and one the middle one. The middle one was considered part of the number of branches. And at the same time, Chanukah has 8 candles. So it's sort of in memorial, is a similar symbol as the menorah of the Beit HaMikdash, but at the other hand, it's a different number. So the number 7 represents natural occurrences. 8 represents supernatural natural occurrences. Another interesting thing which we find about the lights of the Hanukkah, the menorah, the Chanukiah, that is that it's lit specifically after sun goes down. Best after night, after the night comes, which means that it's here to light up the greatest darknesses. We also try to put it in public places. Public, according to the Kabbalah, as we'll see soon, public represents things which are the opposite of Kedusha. So in other words, there is the main theme of the mimer means a discourse. The main theme of this discourse is that somehow the menorah, the lights of the Chanukiah, have an extra special power. They're not just regular lights, not just regular candles. What is the secret of the holiday of Hanukkah? What is the secret of the lights of the menorah? How does it have such a power to supernatural powers? How is it able to light up all the darkness? How is it able to light up even in the most remote places which are not kedusha, which are nothing to do with holiness? Let's start on page 255. After the shir, if you want to read the foreword on page 253, that's also fine. But 255. You can keep the bookmark there. So we're going to read a little bit of Hebrew, and of course we'll explain in the English. Tanu Rabban. This is a quote from the Talmud in Gemara Shabbat. The second chapter discusses for a number of perhaps 3 or 4 pages. The Talmud discusses the subject of Hanukkah, because it's similar to the idea of candles. The Mishnah talks about the candles of Shabbat, and the Talmud often jumps from subject to subject if there's something which connects the 2 subjects.
Gzera Shava.
Tanu Rabbanan, our rabbis, our sages taught us. Mitzvah ner Chanukah, the mitzvah of the candle of Chanukah. Beit Shamai Omrim, Beit Shamai say, the school of Shamai learn, Yom, you can actually see it underneath is under the line is the translation. Yom Rishon, on the first day of Hanukkah, Madlik Shmona, we light 8 candles. Mikan ve'elach, from here on, Pochet v'holech, we go less and we progressively reduce the number of lights. On the second night, we light 7 candles. On this third night, we light 6 candles. The Ubeit Hillel Omrim, in the school of Hillel say, Yom Rishon Madlik Achat. On the first night of Hanukkah, we light 1 candle. Mikan ve'elach, from here on, Mosif v'holich. We progressively increase the number of lights. Time at the Beit Shammai, the Talmud says the reason for Beit Shammai, why Beit Shammai holds the opposite of what we do. we start with 8 and we go down to 1. Keneged Parei HaChag. It corresponds to the oxen of the holiday of Sukkot. We're coming now, just a few weeks ago we celebrated Sukkot. And we offered a total of 70 oxen corresponding to the 70 nations of the world. We started off with 14 a day. The next day, the second day of Sukkot, there were 13 oxen, and so on until the 7th day, the final day of Sukkot, there were 7. And on Shemini Atzeret, which is a holiday for itself, we did 1 because that corresponds to Am Yisrael. We are 1. So just like then, we started at a high number and we went less and less and less. So too, they say, well, this is the next Chag, and therefore we start with the maximum amount of lights, and we go progressively reduce the numbers. The Tama de Bet Hillel, and the reason for the school of Hillel, the Malin Bakodesh. This is a rule that we have in general in Yiddishkeit. We always increase in holiness. That's a rule. And the Rebbe would always use this as an opportunity to encourage people to add in holiness. So let's say you have a birthday, or let's say you have Rosh Hashanah. It's an opportunity to add. Or if, let's say, someone was giving an X amount of money to tzedakah, the next day or the next year or whatever, the next opportunity, add something. Always add in holiness. That's the nature of Kedusha. Kedusha is wherever you have Kedusha, you have increasing amount of holiness. And an opposite of the opposite of Kedusha, I think we're always going less and less, going downward. So because we have a rule, Malin Bakodesh, we always increase in holiness. Therefore, you start with day 1, candle 1. Day 2, two candles, until you come to day 8, which is 8 candles. Let me share with you also. Rosh Chodesh, it's right towards the end of...
The 7th night.
Which Masechta is this?
This is in Shabbos, beginning of the 2nd chapter. Over there we talk about different types of candles, different types of oils that are allowed, because we're not allowed to light on Shabbos an oil which is not pure, because then it flickers and then it can go out and you can by mistake tip it. So the Chachamim didn't want us even to come close to doing Chas v'Shalom, to extinguishing a fire. So the Talmud tells us, the Mishnah says, and the Talmud expands on it, which oils are good and which wood, which wicks, and so on and so forth. Just to explain to you a little bit of a deeper explanation, as the Rebbe explained on many occasions, a deeper explanation into the discussion. I don't like to call them arguments. The discussion between Shamai and Hillel, the school of Shamai and the school of Hillel. What's it can't just be because on Sukkot the numbers go lower, therefore on Hanukkah the numbers go lower. There's got to be something deeper to that. And so there is a general concept in Judaism which is expanded upon greatly in the teachings of Kabbalah and Chassidut. And that is the two points of Koach and Poal. Koach means potential, Poal means practical. Now, we're human beings, and the phrase goes, a judge only, in Hebrew, I'm translating, the judge only can rule according to what his eyes see. We're human beings, this is what we see, what you see is what you get. But if you're able to go a little beneath the surface, you can see a potential which goes sometimes far beyond the practical observation of the mitzvah. So for example, you can do a mitzvah to put on tefillin. But if you look at the person on a deeper level, you can realize that this person has potential to put on tefillin every day on 5 or 10 other people, or one person who didn't yet have opportunity to put on tefillin. That's just a wild example. But just when you see a person, we don't always know what their potential is. Sometimes the person themselves doesn't even know what their potential is. But the more we learn about ourselves, the more we learn about how much koach, how much effort we have, we can hopefully bring ourselves to reveal the potential which we really have. And that's the chidush, the innovation of a tzaddik, that a tzaddik has a holy laser vision, and he has an opportunity to look deep down into your neshama and to say, you know what, this is your avodat Hashem, this is your tikkun, this is your focus that you should be focusing on, because that's connected to your neshama. We don't know what even of ourselves. So, in summary, Hashem is the ultimate one who is bekoach, potential. Hashem doesn't need to make something in order to have, in order to create it. We just learned in the beginning of the Torah, Hashem just said, there shall be light, there was light. There shall be heavens, there was heaven. As soon as he said it. Because for even deeper, even Hashem just had to think it. Just had to consider it, boom, you had the world. Because Hashem doesn't need to do something, Hashem doesn't have any physical features, chas v'shalom, but Hashem doesn't have to do it in order to make it happen. He just has to think about it, or to say it, so to speak. It doesn't have the same mouth like we have, but to bring it out. So for Hashem, potential is real. For us, if you don't make it, if you can't touch it, then it's hard to relate to it, because we're human beings, we're practical people. You can explain to me from today till tomorrow something that we don't see, but if you want us to be able to appreciate it, you have to show it to me. You have to let me touch it, let me feel it. Our senses, touch, seeing, we have to be able to relate to it in some way. But for Hashem, potential is real. And that's where I'm borrowing from that subject, that for a tzaddik as well. For a tzaddik, potential is real. Okay, so now let's get back to Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Hillel is easier to understand, so let's start with him. Beit Hillel, the school of Hillel, says, I'm a practical guy. We're practical people. On the first night of Hanukkah, how many nights of Hanukkah is it? Which day of Hanukkah is it? The first, number one. So we light one. That's what I see. As far as I'm concerned, right now, there is only one day of Hanukkah. So in honor of this day, I light one. On the second day, how many days of Hanukkah are we celebrating tonight? 2. So guess what? We light 2 candles. Beit Shammai comes along and says, Beit Shammai says that you're right. You're looking at the potential, but you're looking at the practical. But Beit Shammai was perhaps, I don't want to say the right, I don't want to put anybody down. I'm just trying to bring a point across. So Beit Shammai says, one second, the Torah is divine. Even though we're human beings, we have to keep the Torah according to Hashem, so to speak. So from Hashem's perspective, today, on the first night of Hanukkah, how many days of Hanukkah do we have potentially ahead?
8.
So it is a holiday of 8. We're about to celebrate Hanukkah of 8 days. So how many candles do we light on the first night of Hanukkah? 8, thank you. It's a very deep thing, because we could speak for hours on this thing, but I'm just trying to give you the nutshell. On the second night of Hanukkah, now, we're about to celebrate now and light the menorah, the Chanukiah, together with a family, together with a community, outside, or put it on your car, or whatever. How many days of Hanukkah do we have? Are we about to celebrate? Are we about to experience, about to mark? 7. Thank you. So therefore, according to Beit Shammai, we look at the koach, we look at the potential. And since on the second day we have a potential of 7 candles, so we don't light 2 candles, rather we light 7 candles. And so on and so forth. And finally, on the last day, how many days do we have now? How many days are left? How many days are we celebrating now? What kind of chag are we celebrating? We're celebrating 1 day. Yofi. So light 1 candle on the final day of Hanukkah. So it was important for me to give...
The one never goes away and stays with us.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because we actually have, even though the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash was always lit every day anew, there was 1 candle, I believe it was the second one to the right, that miraculously was lit the entire time. And from that candle, they would take the Kohen Gadol would take the fire and would light the other ones. It was a miracle. I think it was the second to the right. At least I'm doing from the right. You're looking at it from the other side, so it's this side. So you still have this concept of continuous, of tamid, this 1 candle which continues. Okay, now we're up to the last line in the Hebrew, right above the line. V'yadua, and it's known, diuk, kvod kudushat admor hazaken. It's known the question, the specific details of what the Alter Rebbe asks. In his discourse, so the Rebbe is saying this discourse, I believe it was either 1988, or maybe it's resaid from, often the Rebbe would edit the Mamarim from several years, sometimes decades earlier. But it was definitely given out in 1988, edited. So the Rebbe is basing his mimer on what the Alter Rebbe said, and the Rebbe is going to give his own personal explanation throughout the next several classes in our Tuesday night shir. Ma inyan ner Chanukah l'parei chag? What does it have to do with the price of tea in China? No, that's not exact translation. What do the candles of Hanukkah have to do with the oxen of Sukkot? Just because on Sukkot the numbers go down, 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 does that mean that on Hanukkah we have to go down, down, down? And maybe Chas v'Shalom, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to give any silly examples, but I think the question is clear that there has to be a reason behind it. It can't just be just plain words, just plain text. There must be something deeper that we can understand from this, and thereby we'll hopefully be able to understand the depth of what Beit Shammai is teaching us. Now we're on page 256. We turn the page. Ubefrat, and specifically, Ubefrat, Lefi ma shekatav kvod Kudish Admor Tzemach Tzedek, specifically according to what the Tzemach Tzedek wrote. Shegam Bet Hillel Lo Pligi. The Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, writes as follows. You can see it in the third paragraph under the line. The school of Hillel differ with the school of Shamai only because of the importance of increasing in matters of holiness. In other words, initially Beit Hillel would agree to Beit Shammai. They would say, you know what, you're right. Good comparison to the oxen of the Sukkot. But we have a little problem. The problem is we have a rule, a famous rule, throughout the entire Yiddishkeit, that we go Malin Bakodesh, exactly. We constantly increase in holiness. So with all due respect, Beit Shammai, we're not going to be able to rule like you, and that's actually how we rule today, that the halacha is like Beit Hillel. In fact, something interesting, if you look in the word Chanukah, you'll see that the halacha is like Beit Hillel. Chet is 8. Chet Neirot V'halacha Kebet Hillel.
Oh, wow.
8 candles. Chet Nun Vav Kafe. Chet Neirot. 8 candles. Chet is a numerical value of 8. 8 candles. V'halacha, and the rule, the law, Kebet, as the school of Hillel. That's Chanukah. Now we're not going to get into the fact that when Mashiach comes, the halacha will be like Bet Shammai. Hakol b'seder. So the point that we're trying to say is that the Tzemach Tzedek explains that really Beit Hillel agrees with Bet Shammai, that the comparison to the oxen of the Sukkot is a good comparison. We just have a small, minor technical problem that we have Malin Bakodesh. That even strengthens the question even more, that what's this oxen of a Sukkot? What does that have to do with anything? Let's continue the third paragraph, the English paragraph under the line. I'm jumping a little bit. They too accept the parallel to the bulls brought on the Sukkot holiday. Thus, the above question applies not only according to the school of Shammai, whose opinion is not accepted as halacha, but also to the school of Hillel, because Hillel also agrees with Shammai. So what's this big, interesting statement from Beit Shammai that we compare the candles of Hanukkah to the oxen of Sukkot? You know what? Let's continue on beneath the line over here. It's like halfway down, the fourth paragraph, Uma, and then we'll read the English right next to it. Uma. Uma shemavor bekama makomot, and that which is explained in several sources. Shashayechut de Chanukah l'Sukkot hi sheshneim hem shmona yamim. That the parallel between Chanukah and Sukkot is drawn because they are both 8-day holidays. This is not a mere numerical coincidence. Instead, they share an inner spiritual connection. As I alluded to in the introduction to this shir, that the fact that it's number 8 is not just by chance, and it's not a regular thing. Number 8 represents beyond
nature.
Exactly, higher than nature. So if this is a subject which is higher than nature, so then that already is a comparison between Chanukah and Sukkot. Chanukah is 8 days, Sukkot is 8 days, so we're already trying to find a connection. So maybe that's the reason why Beit Shammai compares the style of going less and less to Sukkot, where we also bring the oxen on the Mizbeach less, one by one, every day less. The Mispar Shmone, second to last Hebrew paragraph on the bottom, the Mispar Shmone More al Bechina Shalomala Meishtal Shalut, because the number 8 represents on the number which surpasses Hishtal Shalut in the supernal, which is the spiritual cosmos. The spiritual cosmos, Seder Hishtal Shalut, is structured in series of 7, paralleling the 7 emotive attributes of Atzilut. 8 refers to a transcendent light, or makif. That's what makif is. It's transcendent. It hovers over. It doesn't come in between yut. That stands above the patterns that define that structure. Not only in this case. Anytime we have the number 8, that's what it refers to. So, for example, it says that in Mashiach's harp there will be 8 strings. In David HaMelech's harp there were 7 strings. It's not just by chance. There's going to, that extra note that's going to be added. That's that extra note. It's not just another note. It's a deep note. It's something which touches very, very deep down into the heart when we play nigunim, right? We play nigunim like we talked about last Tuesday night. When we play nigunim, which touches the heart, this is going to be on a much, much deeper level.
Brit Milah,
The affair, Brit Milah, we just celebrated last week and this week. We talk about Avraham Avinu, and we talk about Yitzchak Avinu this week, and the teasing conversation between Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yishmael said, I'm better than you because I had my Brit Milah when I was 13 years old. And Yitzchak said, no, I'm better than you because I had my Brit Milah when I was 8 days old. And so that's when Sarah got really upset and sent Hagar and Yishmael away. But the question is, what was Yitzchak thinking? Obviously Yishmael is better. He could have said no. Yitzchak, well, he couldn't say no. He couldn't object. So why would Yitzchak say? He wasn't just saying words. Why would he say that his own Brit Milah is better than Yishmael's? And the answer is because Brit means a covenant. A covenant is a very deep relationship, a very deep connection, which surpasses rationale. So Yishmael tried to argue, oh, I'm better because I did my Brit Milah when I was 13 years old. Yeah, but you're forgetting, Yishmael, you're forgetting that what we're trying to accomplish here is a connection with Hashem which surpasses rationale, which surpasses intellect. So it doesn't make a difference if they ask you your opinion or not, and it doesn't make a difference if you agreed or not. The fact that you think that your connection to Hashem is based on your own decision, your own agreeing to do it, that shows that you don't begin to understand what a deep relationship with Hashem is. I, Yitzchak, I'm better than you. Because I got my Brit Milah when I was 8 days old. Not only when I couldn't speak, because that represents, there's a joke. There's a joke. Why don't it's a terrible joke, but it's funny. Well, I first have to say the joke before that, then I'll say this joke. Why don't you say Shechianu the first time you smoke? Because it's usually in the bathroom. Huh. So here's the joke that I was going to say. Here's the joke. Why don't your Yerushalmis say Shechianu when they smoke? Because they can't speak yet.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I told you it's a bad joke, but it's unfortunate. You see these little kids, whatever. Now, Yitzchak, he couldn't object, but never dafka because of that he couldn't say that it wasn't my seichel, my logic, my agreeing, my consent. Dafka because of that made Yitzchak's Brit Milah so special and so real and so authentic. So this is Yishmael versus Yitzchak, and moreover, it didn't just happen on day 7, but it happened on day 8, because day 8 once again represents this whole idea of super rational. So it's all connected. So if you want to try to answer the reason why Beit Hillel really agrees with Beit Shamai, and the reason why they why Beit Shamai says that you have to go less and less is because they compare it to Sukkot, which is when we offer the oxen on the Mizbeach, on the altar, and we go less from 14 down to 7. Maybe you want to explain to me that the connection is that both Hanukkah and Sukkot are both number 8. Bottom line in the Hebrew, but this itself requires explanation. Now we're on to page 257. Ma'u kesher de Sukkot v'Chanukkah lebechina shel ma'al mishtalshalut. It's not a number game over here, numbers game. What is the connection between Sukkot and Hanukkah with the aspect of the divine light that transcends the structure of spiritual cosmos? Which results in them encompassing 8 days. So you can't just tell me, oh, the fact that this is 8 days and that's 8 days, that means that they're connected, and therefore we'll compare other details to them. There has to be a connection to the mahut, to the inner quality of Hanukkah and the inner quality of Sukkot, which are similar. They both have the concept of 8, and then you can tell me, okay, now I'll understand. Just like Sukkot is 8, so Hanukkah also has 8, and we'll compare it in other places, in other areas as well. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't know, maybe there's a connection between the number 8 in middle of the summer or middle of the winter, I don't know. Like, just because here's 8 and there's 8 doesn't mean that they have to be compared. So we're back to square one. Square one is, why do Beit Shamai, and essentially Beit Hillel as well, why do they say that the reason why the lights of Hanukkah goes less and less, 8, 7, 6, etc., are compared to the oxen of Hanukkah, from Sukkot, which begin from 14 bulls, 13, 12, 11, etc. Let's do the next paragraph in the English. It is not that because Sukkot and Hanukkah are 8 days, are 8-day holidays, we presume that they relate to this transcendent divine light. Rather, it is because they reflect this transcendent light that they are 8 days, the 8-day holidays. It is necessary to understand the interconnection holidays share with this level of light. So it starts with the mahut, with the inner quality of each chag, and from there we explain, oh, because it has such a light in connection with above nature, above ishtalshalut, therefore they have 8 days. Doesn't work the opposite. Because they have 8 days, then it starts earlier. So we want to, as we started in the introduction, saying, well, we want to find out throughout this mimer, throughout this discourse, is what is the secret? What is it about Sukkot? And especially our subject is Hanukkah. What is it about Hanukkah which has within itself such a deep light, such a deep neshama? Now I'm going to say it in other words. When we're going to sit around the Hanukkah light, Hanukkah menorah, and we're going to look at the candles. There's a phrase in Yiddish amongst Chassidim that the Lichtelach der Zelen, the lights of Hanukkah, they tell messages. And if you listen close enough, you can listen to the messages that they share, and every night has its own message, and perhaps every candle has its own message, and every scenario, every year, every situation has its own message. But hopefully, throughout the course of the next few shiurim, we're going to begin to taste from the infinite knowledge of Kabbalah and Chassidus, which is the inner meaning of what Hanukkah is all about and what the candles of Hanukkah represent. So that's question number one. Why do we go less and less? What's the connection to Sukkot? Now we're going to ask another related question. V'gam, in the middle of page 257, and after we're finished the page, please listen closely because we only have 3 copies. And the Mitzvah Hashem, by the way, I just realized that there is another sefer, so if you want another sefer, so we could probably, I have one over there. Ariel, is it possible to please pass me that one over there, just in case someone wants, especially if you want to keep it for long term and buy it after the share. That's another great idea. Thank you very much. So if you want, just let me know. In the meantime, we're going to continue. V'gam, another question we have which is related. Chanukah, the kindling of the Hanukkah lights was ordained in commemoration mepnei hanes shehaya b'neirot hamikdash, in commemoration of the miracle that transpired with regard to the lamps of the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple. So because we found oil, pure jug of oil, which is in and of itself a tremendous miracle, and miraculously all 7 candles lit for an entire 8 days until they brought regular pure oil. Umikivan shebamikdash hayu zayin nerot. As we said in the beginning, how many candles were there in the Beit HaMikdash? There were 7, 3 in each branch and 1 in the middle, which was the same height, considered part of it. So maduach b'Chanukah yesh shmona yamim. Why in Hanukkah do we have 8 days, 8 candles? The whole thing is you're comparing it to the Beit HaMikdash, so do it like the way it was in the Beit HaMikdash. True that it took technically 8 days until it came back, but you're celebrating. We will be celebrating the menorah, the miracle which was connected to the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash. So let's light our menorah. Our Chanukah should be similar to that. Actually, if we did that, I don't think it would be called the Chanukah. I think it would be called the menorah. If I dare say the word menorah over here, then in Israel, I have to get used to it. Because over here it's only Chanukah, but it can understand it's a difference. There's a Chanukah. Then it wouldn't be called. So, in continuation to the whole idea that Hanukkah and Sukkot are higher, we want to know what is the secret of this light that it's so powerful. Why 8? It should be 7. That's the whole thing. That's the whole idea. Isn't that the whole concept? The whole reason for why we celebrate, why we light the menorah? To remember the miracle of the menorah. Next English paragraph. True. The Hanukkah miracle was that the menorah remained burning for 8 days. But that also requires explanation. Why was it that the miracle encompassed 8 days? Hashem made that it took 4 days to get wherever they were going, 4 days to come back. So Hashem could have made part of the miracle Hagufa, this itself. Let's try to understand why is Hanukkah 8? It could have easily been 7. So what are we going to explain? What is the theme of the Maimer? What we're going to explain, hopefully, how we find in Hanukkah this secret neshama, this secret inspiration of number 8. Another point requires explanation. V'gam tzarach lahavin. The bottom paragraph. I like when the Rebbe sticks in some Yiddish words here and there. It's just, I'm telling you, there are some words you just can't explain in any other language. Ma shahafer gleich. Tzvi, ma ta omer? זה משהו. Ma shahafer gleich hashva'a. The comparison. The Neirot Chanukah lo l'chag Sukkot b'chal, elo parei chag dafka. Why does the school of Shamai draw the comparison not to the Sukkot holiday as a whole, according to what we just explained, should have been enough. Just like Sukkot is 8, so also Hanukkah is 8, but specifically to the bulls offered on that holiday. The Lechora, next page, if you have the Sefer, the Lechora, 258. On the Sefer? Whatever you want. Bakasha. The Lechora, on the surface, Harinerot Chanukah shayachim la menorah. The candles of Hanukkah relate to the menorah. Neirot Chanukah he mepnei hanes shahaya b'neirot ha-menorah. The lights of the Hanukkah are because of the miracle that transpired with the lamps of the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash. And on the other hand, about Sukkot, uparei hachag, and the bulls offered on Sukkot, b'chol ha-korbanot hikrivu al gabei ha-mizbeach, were offered like all sacrifices on the outer altar. So the menorah, you know how it worked? You had over here here was like the building of the Beit HaMikdash. Here's the Kodesh HaKodeshim. The Kotel is outside. Is this wall that comes as close as possible to Kodesh HaKodeshim. And there was only the Aron HaKodesh, only the Holy Ark. and there was a parochet, there was a curtain, thank you. And over here was the Kodesh. All the way inside, it's called Lefnai v'Lefnim, that was the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. Over here, in the Kodesh, we had the menorah, Mizbeach HaKtoret, and we had the Shulchan. They were all in this room before you got to the Kodesh. And then you had, it was like a T. Here you had, this is like the entrance, a beautiful foyer with gorgeous candelabras that came down, gold, it was just unbelievable, really, really tall. That was called the Ulam. Then, outside, this is where all the action was. You know how you say action in Hebrew? Action. all the action outside. You had the huge menorah with the ramp. It was massive. That's where Kohanim would go up, and then the Mizbeach itself was square, and you had the whole area on the side over here with the preparing the animals. It was very organized. It was fascinating. The Kohanim going back and forth. You got to practice, and it's coming up soon. And then the outer part, that was the Azara where everybody came in certain areas for different chambers, so on and so forth. So here's the point: the Beit HaMikdash itself had 3 areas, like I said earlier. Had the entrance, the foyer, the Kodesh, and the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So you have the menorah, which was inside the building. That's one level of holiness, a very high level of holiness. And that's in connection with the holiday of Hanukkah. When we talk about Sukkot, we offered the Parei Chag, the bulls. Where were they? Outside the building, a whole different category, on that big Mizbeach, that big altar with a huge ramp, high up there, which was, I'm not sure exactly, around 30 or 35 feet tall. It was huge. It was very, very high. And so, how can you compare, this is a deeper question, based on what we said up until now, how can you compare Chanukah to Sukkot? Chanukah, we celebrate the inside, with almost like holier, more sacred, and Sukkot we're celebrating the outside Mizbeach, which is nice, but how could you compare the two? Let's see the words inside. It's the 4th small paragraph, if you have the Sefer. V'harei menorah u'mizbeach hem shnei kelim shonim. These are 2 different sacramental vessels. Moreover, the place where these vessels were located in the Beis HaMikdash points to the difference between them. The outer altar on which the sacrifices were offered was positioned before the entrance hall to the sanctuary, like I just explained to you. Outside the sanctuary itself, that was the holy building. That was the Beis HaMikdash itself. The menorah, by contrast, was located inside the sanctuary. And especially, in particular, this is true according to the explanations, according to the vessels, regarding these vessels given by Kabbalah and Chassidus. It's even harder to understand once we learn. We're not going to learn in depth now, but there's a major difference between anything which is done inside the Beis HaMikdash, which is done outside. Every vessel has its own meaning and its own explanation and its own neshama. Let's look at the second to last Hebrew paragraph. V'neirot v'korbanot avodot shonot. And candles and korbanot, kindling the lamps, of menorah and offering the sacrifice are 2 different types of services. The offering of this sacrifices is intended primarily to refine the sparks of godliness contained in the material substance of the world. In contrast, the purpose of kindling the menorah is primarily to shine forth godly light within the world. So it's not just to take out the sparks which is inside the world. The menorah is here to elevate the world itself. So once again, we're back to square one. 1 second, we're not finished the question yet. The bottom paragraph. Va'ad, Hashem told Aaron HaKohen, when Aaron saw, right in the beginning of Ba'alotcha, after the end of Naso, when each of the heads of the korbanot, of the shvatim, of the tribes, they brought to inaugurate the Mizbeach. Once again, we have the idea of the Mizbeach. And Aaron HaKohen, he saw this, and he didn't take part. He was the leader of the tribe of Levi, but he didn't take part in the inauguration. So Hashem said, don't worry. Shalcha g'dolah mishalahem. Yours is even, what you're going to do with the menorah and lighting is even greater than the other leaders of the tribes. Indeed, when Aaron felt sorrow at not having been included in the offering of the sacrifices to dedicate the altar of the sanctuary, Hashem assured him, your divine service, we're now on the top of 259, your divine service, kindling the lamps of the menorah, is greater than theirs bringing the sacrifice. Moreover, and the lights, the candles of the menorah of the Chanukiah are so special because it says, Einan b'telid no'olam. They will never be nullified. Other mitzvahs, it says, mitzvot b'telot la'atid lavo. Regular mitzvahs are going to be nullified. Maybe I should spend a minute just to explain that point because it's a little bit of an extreme statement. But let's suffice for now that the lights of the menorah are so special that einan b'telid no'olam. They're never going to be nullified. If so, how could you compare the menorah to the Mizbeach? The Mizbeach was done by the other leaders of the other tribes. Hashem told Aaron, your mitzvah is going to be way better than theirs. So how can we start comparing them and try to learn things from Sukkot to Hanukkah when this is, it's not apples and oranges, it's apples and potato kugel, I don't know, and cholent. It's something totally steak, and it's something totally different. Just to explain what the concept of Einan b'telid no'olam. It's easier to explain when it comes to Chagim. So let me talk about that, and then you'll understand hopefully for other mitzvot. It says that there are certain mitzvot, certain Chagim that are never going to be nullified. For example, about Chanukah, I believe Purim as well. Yep. So what does it mean? That Pesach, we're not going to have Pesach anymore? We're not going to have Chas v'Shalom. The Rambam says
Purim has all the holidays in it.
Yeah, but the Rambam says the Torah is never going to be HaTorah azot lo tiyeh muchlefet lo'olam. It's never going to be changed. So how can we suggest that that there's not going to be Pesach anymore, there's not going to be Rosh Hashanah anymore, Shavuot, Sukkot? These are the Shalosh Regalim, the three main holidays. Okay, all the Regel. And so the answer is, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be the other holidays anymore. All it means is that, let's say you have a regular day that's on this level. Shabbat is a special day. It's on the higher level, more a greater level of Kedusha. Chagim is on this level. And Chanukah and Purim are like all the way up here. So when Mashiach comes, every day is going to be special. So let's say Hanukkah and Purim are up here, and every day is going to be like, let's say, Pesach. So, in a sense, it's called Batel. It's all, it's all, it's, and I don't know if nullified is the right word. You're right. That's what it says. But I think the word is, it's swallowed into the regular sea of regular days. So Pesach, it's not going to stick out. Now it sticks out because the regular days are down here. So when Pesach comes, we're all ready, we're all excited, sit by the Seder, the family, community, it's all special. But when Mashiach comes, every day is going to be on that level. So Pesach is going to be like, it won't be recognized as being something unique. Rather, it will just be like a regular day, like Pesach. Even when Mashiach comes, Chanukah and Purim are going to stick out. They're so special that they're going to stick out. So if so, we're back to square one. How can you, Beit Shamai, and also Beit Hillel, because they essentially agree with Beit Shamai, that you have to learn from Sukkot, just like in Sukkot you went down in Korbanot, also in Chanukah you have to go down in your candles. You can't compare the two. These are two different concepts. We're covering all directions, all corners. Let's just finish one more paragraph. At least the questions, so the next time we could continue with the answers hopefully. The Gam tzarich lahav, and a further point that requires explanation. Masha mitzvata shel ner Chanukah hi mishitishka chama. We said in the beginning, when is the mitzvah to kindle the lights of Chanukah? After sunset. The yadua diuk bezeh, it is well known that this requires clarification. The neirot hamikdash hidlikum plaga mincha. What time would they light the candles of the Beit HaMikdash? Plaga mincha means literally half mincha. What does that mean? There's a time when mincha is allowed to be daven, which is initially from chatzot, from midday. But since we don't know exactly when chatzot is, we say the mincha gedola starts from a half hour, a halachic hour, not a 60-minute hour, a half hour after chatzot, after midday. So from then until sunset, we could daven mincha until sunset. From then we cut it in half, which is
4 hours before.
Shah or Rechavia Kodem Ashkia. Plaga Mincha seems to be half of Mincha Ketana. Okay? So you have Mincha Gedola starts from all the way up till a half hour after midday. And then Mincha Ketana is somewhere in the middle. And then you cut between there and the sunset, you cut that in half. Which is Shah or Rechavia Kodem Ashkia. Which is an hour and a quarter before Shkia. In other words, during daylight. Since the candles of Hanukkah are because of the miracle that happened with the menorah in the Beit HaMikdash, and especially that we have a rule, there's a general principle, that every practice ordained by the sages was ordained in a manner that reflects a scriptural commandment. It has to be similar. So, logically, seemingly it would have been befitting do the time of the kindling of the candles like the candles of Beit HaMikdash before sunset, while it's still light. So why is the mitzvah to kindle the Hanukkah light specifically after sunset? I once explained in one of the earlier shiurim about a year ago that a question, it's okay to finish off a class with a question. In Chakira, which over there we don't finish off with a question, because in Chakira, what are they asking? God forbid, is there a God or not? But in Chassidus, you'll never see a question, is there a God? You want to understand, there's a God for sure. Which you want to understand, how does this happen, or how does that work, or what's the explanation in this? You're not gonna lose any sleep, chas v'shalom, to have any doubts in Hashem. It's simply on the contrary, because we know that Hanukkah is so great. We want to understand what is the secret. I keep trying to give you that common denominator which goes through all of the questions. It's clear that Hanukkah is number 8. It's clear that it has extra special powers. It's clear that it lights up the darkness. It's clear that it's number 8. And it's clear now that it's like Sukkot. But what is it? What is it about Hanukkah? What's so special about Hanukkah? You know the famous joke that all Jewish holidays are the same. You could probably correct me. They hated us, they killed us, or they tried to kill us, and then we won. Something like that.
And we at least have something to eat.
And then let's eat. That's the most important part. How can I forget? Let's eat. So then I'll give you another one. They set up the Jewish calendar after eating 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, Tzom Gedai, you have a fast. After eating Erev Yom Kippur, you have a fast on Yom Kippur. After eating a full, eight suganiyot every day of Hanukkah, I'm just kidding around, or then you have Asara B'Tevet, the fast of Tevet, to do a little diet. I'm not sure exactly where the Tanit Esther comes in, because it's supposed to be according to that after Purim, but we'll leave that for the next year. And whatever, so basically after Shavuot, Asara B'Tevet, Asara B'Tamuz. The bottom line is that in Mitzvah Hashem, over the next shiurim, we're going to learn about the mahut, the special quality of Chanukah.